Wowza.
Hello everybody, welcome to the post show episode number 15, following off from this week's Sounds of Stadia podcast. You're joining myself, Chris, one of your hosts, alongside the man of many teacher pixels, Mr. Tom. Why does the post show always go off the rails immediately?
That's part of the fun of the post show. I'm still like...
I love it. I love how we don't. It's like less scripted. We've got less key talking points. Let's just fucking go.
Let's just ruin it.
Damn!
So yeah,
straight shots fired.
So dropping the F-bomb down in the bottom, we've got Mr. Richie again joining myself and Tom for the post show, where we talk about things not news related. I'm being burned by the sun. I mean, just a quick gloss over there. Solar flare going out. So this week's topic, gentlemen, off the back of all the crazy busy cloud news we got this week, I wanted to talk about cloud gaming and do we think it will actually ever overtake console gaming? With the last generation presumably being the last, is what was touted, and then PS4, Switch and everything went on to sell millions upon millions of consoles, which was a big middle finger to everyone who said that console gaming was dead. And then now we're on the cusp of PS5, Xbox Series X, and we've probably got a Switch Pro of some kind, probably coming out next year, maybe mid-generation. I like to do that kind of thing. But what we've noticed is cloud gaming has increased tenfold with big players, as we know, like Google Stadia and Amazon, now Facebook getting in on the mix, and Nintendo. Of all the companies, Nintendo are even trialing games like Control, powered by a different company. So that leads me to believe, to raise the question, are we starting to see a shift where the power in the cloud is now genuinely overtaking, due to manufacturing costs and other such things, consoles, traditional consoles?
I want to start by saying I actually like the way you've worded this. Will cloud overtake consoles? Because I don't think we're going to see one wholesale replacement, but I can see over the course of the next generation cloud becoming more the norm.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're starting to see shifts already. If you just look at if you look at Microsoft and Sony in general, the fact that they're offering digital-only consoles or consoles that are primarily focused on, digital delivery of games instead. That's sort of like your key point right there. I think one thing I should add as well, from like a little bit away from the console stuff, but very recently, we're now starting to see the what's it called? Starlink. That's it, Starlink beta as well. Now the Starlink satellites have been launched. We've now got Starlink internet that's going to be available globally, and it's providing speeds at the moment, which, quite frankly, can run Stadia at its basic level. So we should be in a position now where you can access the cloud from anywhere on the planet. So it makes it far more accessible. So I think we're very much seeing that shift happening at the moment.
Yeah, I think the reason why I don't think it'll have a full wholesale replacement is as much as things like Starlink and Elon Musk attempt to control the world. It comes down to a lot of things like the internet service providers. I can only really say in the UK, but I think the US probably has the same issue on a bigger problem where more rural areas tend to have crappy internet and basically kind of being forgotten by the internet service providers because there's not as many people. And it's basically means it costs the internet service provider a lot more money to put down the cable.
Oh, 100%. Like the demand cost alone, like that's why the UK is quite, like, we're quite fortunate that we live on a little small island. Like the reality is that the less space there is to cover, the less cable is required. So it is a little bit easier, but the problem we've got for most things is cost. A lot of people think it's just you just whack up an antenna and everything's good to go with things like 5G and stuff, but the reality is for hard fibre optic cable, you need to dig out the ground. That you're talking roads, buildings, fields, and then you need like I don't want to go too technical with it, but you need like big infrastructure buildings and exchanges to sort all this stuff out, and it all costs money to run. Not only that, doesn't even factor in like the power to run it as well. So yeah, on a logistical thing like something like the United States, I can only imagine. So in terms of traditional consoles, I think there's a huge requirement for them still everywhere. Even though I'm a big fan of the cloud.
There is, but a lot of games are leaning quite heavily into the online, like the online persistent nature of games, like things like cloud saving and so on as well, or just being able to interact with things that are going on online, or multiplayer in general. However, there is still the existence of single player games.
Yeah.
They still exist.
Yeah. A good comparison, I would say, is the world that's changed, like movies. So we've all talked on the podcast, and we talk in our day lives about subscription models like Netflix and Amazon Prime, and how Blockbuster Video died out. For those kids listening right now, you used to go walk and pick something up and rent it and take it back for the weekend. Like, that's how long you had this stuff for games included. But although that's died out, and a lot of people now stream stuff from the cloud, so movies and such with Disney Plus and the like, the reality is you can still go buy the movies on DVD for the most part. So you've got the two things. So yes, like gaming, you've got the digital versions, but you can still go pick up one at your GameSpot, your Game Electronics Boutique, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Your local Woolies.
I think we are at the start of that transition where it's a lot of it is getting people comfortable with the technology, and a lot of people, the biggest argument for like physical games is kind of the sense of ownership.
Yeah.
I have the disc, so no matter what happens to the service, I can put this into the drive and it works.
I mean, yeah, I always see this ownership argument being thrown around, and the counterpoint is, well, people use services like Netflix, use Amazon and so on. They buy digital content there, and Amazon has been doing it for quite a while now. And when you buy a movie digitally through Amazon, you quite frankly, you don't own it. Like, it's as simple as that. They could take it away at a point's notice. It's going to piss you off if they do.
You buy a license for the software, not the software itself.
Yeah, but let's look at the other side of it, like the reasons why cloud technology in general doesn't hold up so much at the moment. I mean, in the US, you've already touched on rural locations. It's a massive country, but data caps are an absolute killer. That needs to be sorted. Yeah. Like, why there are data caps in 2020 at the moment is absolutely beyond me, considering how much of our lives.
Why. The simple reason why is the internet service providers want to make more money, and by putting an arbitrary cap in there, they can charge you for a higher tier of package.
But it's ridiculous, because I'm a bit of an advocate to say that internet at this point should be considered amongst a human necessity, because so much of our lives are embedded in on the internet.
We're getting into the political realm there with that sort of thing. This is where
it's not wrong.
You need governments to step in to go, no, you can't do this.
How do job applications work now? It's usually through an online application form. Submit your CV, upload your CV, and without the internet, you can't do that.
Yeah, and I think as time goes on as well, more and more of our everyday systems become embedded in online technology. Like, even simple things like, how often do you send letters now? I mean, we use emails, text messages, we make phone calls. We don't use post anymore. It's all online, essentially. So the idea of data caps is beyond me. I agree with the money thing, but that needs to be solved in order for cloud to sort of explode a little bit more. The second thing is sort of the general access to speeds globally. There are Asian countries that do it far better than us. Korea has a national average of nearly a gig.
Well, again, this has come back in the political world. I know the major political parties in the UK keep banding around gigabit internet, but I'm sat there thinking, you don't need gigabit internet. What we need is probably 100 meg everywhere.
Yeah, you need. I think every country should have or should work towards a base establishment of something along the lines of 100 megabits per second.
Get your base minimum set before you start pushing the top end, and that's But gigabit internet sounds better in a political speech. So
it's better. It's better marketing as well. The reality is that's the same with 5G. Is 4G is ample if you've got a good connection for things like streaming Stadia. 4G can get you upwards of 80, 100, 140 meg if you're in a decent area. But here comes 5G, which is, again, it's more about capacity. So it's you can do more. So in theory, you could play Stadia in a football stadium with 50,000 other people. You couldn't do that on previous generations of network, and that's where it comes in. But reality is how and when are you going to utilise that to make the most of it? And it's
I don't know. Have you seen Newcastle play before? If I was watching Newcastle play, I might just pull out Stadia and play a bit of FIFA.
You could do. Well, not on Stadia yet. 28 days.
Not yet.
EA.
28 days. We'll see. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and I do think it's gradual. Part of me believes it's just generational from a human, not a console, a human being. The reality is once our generations are I don't want to say phased out, but as younger people who are more...
Once us 30-year-olds are no more.
Once us 30-year-olds are phased out, the people who are now coming into gaming, the market that these massive companies like Facebook and Google and Amazon are targeting towards, their demographic is your 15-year-olds who are now coming into their first jobs and their money, and they're looking at a way to sign up to subscriptions, reality, in the consumer world we live in.
Yeah.
We are not... that. Although we're the demographic that seems to be using Stadia the most for convenience... they are the target that are going to fund them for the next 50 years. And we've looked at it when they expand into countries that, like India and stuff, are huge pots of money because they, like you said, Tom, the infrastructure's not necessarily there yet. But once the internet's sorted, along come all the internet people and providers. It's huge. Like we haven't even touched on, but fibre broadband and stuff. Central Africa's only just been connected up to fibre broadband in the last decade. That's millions and millions of people who, at the moment, gaming's not even on the radar. But fast forward 20, 30 years, that's a lot of people, all with money. So, crazy.
Well, for me, I think we're at the start of the transition. And I think, like any new technology, you're going to go through these phases where you're going to slowly implement the technology, people are going to get their hands on, and eventually you get to the point where you kind of just need to push people over the line, the holdouts. It's like you probably can't buy a TV now that you can fit your old VCR recorder onto directly.
We very recently bought Holly's mum a new 4K TV, and there's no such thing as a SCART port on a TV anymore because it's redundant technology. And you are right; those sorts of things get phased out eventually, and new technologies become the mainstream. Like, just look at how we moved from CDs to DVDs to Blu-rays, and now we are moving towards 4K. In terms of like digital media, 4K DVDs or 4K Blu-rays, whatever the actual official name is for it.
It's even in music as well. You had like 8-track cassette, like cassettes, and
vinyls are making a comeback, baby.
Vinyls making a comeback because they're cool. But then you got like CDs. But now it's like most cars probably don't come with a CD player. That's now becoming an optional extra.
Yeah,
very true.
Definitely not a tape deck.
And you look at going back to the consoles. Sony and Microsoft's newest editions of consoles, there is a version there's a cheaper version without that disk drive.
Yeah.
Which that is them starting the conditioning process to get people moving away from physical content into digital content. And
it's
cloud gaming is just a different form of digital content.
Yeah, it is. I think, there are still hurdles that need to be stepped over. We're nowhere near the finishing line. In fact, we're only just off the starting blocks as per Stadia starting this off, xCloud, GeForce
I'd say
Now.
The launch of Stadia is the start of the transition.
Yeah, but we are seeing like the big players get in on this now, like with the Nintendo announcement, with Facebook getting in on it. Microsoft are firing on all cylinders at the moment with it too, with Xbox game streaming, whatever the service is now called. Like, it's gone through so many name iterations as well. But the reality is, there is a clear recognition. It's reported in the media. It's just a matter of time before it does become the norm. And it just needs to persist. As long as it persists, it will become adopted as the norm. Yeah.
The interesting thing that I like to think about is when we look at these, we're on the cusp of next gen console, and we know for a fact it happens every time they announce it. But Sony and Microsoft, they generally take a loss on these consoles when they come out because the cost of manufacturing the parts, it's so expensive now, and again, inflation and stuff, it only goes up year on year on year. Is it? I know you said there, Richie, that kind of the launch of Stadia kickstarted truly this kind of the race to the cloud as such. Is it feasible that as all this tech gets expensive and next gen rolls around, that PS6, PS7, it just becomes a point where it's too expensive for the general consumer, and Stadia, that'll now at that point be 7-8 year old, coming up a decade, is the I know we joke about it, but that could honestly be with Luna and stuff, even though they're in their infancy right now, they are the viable long term solution, because when the PS6 comes around and that box has to, They cannot cling on to this $499 price point. At one point, it is going to have to be $599, $699, whatever it may be. And at what point does the consumer just go, no, I can't afford that. I can't buy my 10-year-old a $500,000 worth of game console just to play whatever may be the hot thing at the moment. If FIFA's ever on, and if Cyberpunk ever comes out, the cloud is such an option. It really, really is.
Before I go on to that, I just want to explain why I say Stadia is the first, like, this start of the transition. Because I know there's other cloud services have been around before, but I think Stadia is the first one to really popularize the concept. But I think you're right. I think this is why I've said before on the Sound of Stadia podcast about xCloud and Microsoft's general approach, where I think they're gearing up for a console-less future over the next, using this current generation as potentially the last one where you buy a physical Xbox. I think that's why they're pushing like Game Pass and xCloud so hard now. So while you still got the box in your living room, get you used to using these services, and so when the next generation of console comes around, you realize you haven't put a disc or downloaded anything in your box for a couple of years. Sony's different because they don't seem to be making that sort of moves yet.
Yeah, that we know of.
Yeah.
It goes back to what we were saying before about like the television. I realised the other week when the Great British Bake Off started again that I had not turned on my television box to watch live TV since I got my Stadia, because I unplugged the Ethernet from the TV box to hardwire the Chromecast Ultra into the main TV. And it's when I went to turn the TV box back on and it said it needs to be hardwired for pausing live TV and update the channel listing. I realised that I've not used it in over a year nearly.
Why even have it?
Because the TV, broadband and TV companies in the UK, back to what you said about data caps, they hold you accountable. It's cheaper for me to have the whole bundle than just the internet. I still have a landline that I don't even have a goddamn socket in the wall to attach.
I mean,
but I pay for it.
I've got the landline and the internet bundle from Virgin, and again, I've got the landline only because it was cheaper. It was on sale.
Which is a joke in itself, but that's a different conversation.
Having the TV in there, that's usually more expensive. So
yeah, but this is what I wanted to loop it back to. What you're saying, Rich, about conditioning people is at one point in the next 5 or 6 years, the consumer market and the Ofcom and the companies that regulate these consumer brands, they will clamp down on them and say, you need to offer these packages as individual options. You cannot keep bundling in landline when only 10% of the country uses it. And they'll eventually have to change their model to match the demand. And that's when you're saying, like with consoles, it's going to phase them out, but gradually.
The problem is with the bundle I've got from Virgin, I think the concept is they want you to have a landline and to use it, so they'll give you they make the bundle with the landline cheaper. But then they're only actually just skewing their own metrics, making like, we've got all these people on this service. Like, no, we actually have the service, but we're not actually using it.
Yeah,
we only have it because it was in the more financial savvy decision.
Yeah.
What I wonder about seeing the next sort of step of marketing / evolution for cloud gaming is when ISPs do start including it as part of their service. Do you know how, like, when you take up an internet package, it could be like, you get like BT Sport with it, or you get like access to Netflix with it for 6 months or something. When your ISPs start jumping on board with it and saying, you're going to get 6 months of Stadia Pro if you take out this package, or you get 6 months of Xbox Game Stream, or again, whatever it's called at the moment.
We've seen it. It's already happened. Verizon were giving away Stadia Premier Edition bundle before.
But rather than that, but what I mean is like you actually get the service as part of it, like alongside Android TV or something as part of your ISP, then people might be likely to jump into that, because what they're doing then is your ISP is straight up saying you will be able to play this and you'll be able to play it well based on your internet connection that you're taking out here.
And they can also condition it so it's designed around your usage. So we see it a lot in the mobile industry. If you take out a contract with a mobile phone and you only watch Netflix on your phone, a lot of plans now, they may not offer unlimited internet, unlimited data, but you can opt in for a bundle that gives you, anytime you use Netflix to stream, it doesn't come out of your data cap. So I could definitely see a home internet provider offering I don't know, 50 gig cap, but any streaming you do is exempt from that data cap. So something like a gaming pass would give you unlimited Stadia. Something like a download pass would give you unlimited Netflix. But anything else you use, like documents and websites and stuff, that eats into your data cap. But again, it's a future that's coming, I think. It's definitely is.
Yeah.
So will cloud
The ISPs
overtake
are going to
console?
probably... Yes, eventually.
Tom?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing it, and as Richie said to start things off with, I think it's a matter of time now.
Matter of time. How big, by the time the needle switches, and we now see 51% cloud, 49% console, how big do you think our pro subscription libraries will be?
Hopefully we'll have filters, put it that way.
In a search bar. In a search bar.
One can only hope.
One can only hope. But we'd love to know your thoughts on this, ladies and gentlemen. So let us know down in the comments below when you think cloud gaming will overtake it. And if you don't think it will, let us know why. What do you think's holding cloud gaming back? Is it price? Is it infrastructure? Is it that goddamn thing we love to call the internet? Let us know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and the video, because it really does help our algorithms grow and expand. And if you are a lovely Patreon supporter, you of course got this 6 days early than everybody else. So head over to patreon.com/SoundStadia if you would love this show a little bit earlier in the week. If you'd prefer it on a Monday or a Tuesday, head over there and check that out as well, because we do love your added continued support. That's it for the post show this week, gentlemen. No doubt we will be discussing cloud and console many times over in the future, as we see. I think the big interesting caveat is how many of these digital console editions sell in comparison to the CD disc versions. I don't like calling them the discless, because I'm very conscious of saying dickless every time it comes up.
The dickless version.
The dickless version, exactly. But either way, that's a wrap for post-show podcast number 15. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been Richie.
And we're in the cloud. See you next week. Enjoy some gaming. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
It's looking a little bit overcast.
Cloudy.
What, indoors?
Tom's got a skylight.
Alright, makes sense.
You ever had a skylight when there's been a duck or a bird sat in one having a bath? And you see their webbed feet and their ass from underneath? No? Just me? Okay.